Good morning.
Good morning.
You are joining us for a comprehensive briefing on current international events. Imagine, if you will, trying to survive in a combat zone where the official safe borders move every single day.
Right. Or picture watching a massive global superpower earnestly negotiate a maritime peace treaty with a government that, well, doesn't actually control its own weapons.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It really is.
So we are delivering a special 2-week analysis of the Middle East crisis today. And this broadcast is brought to you by ProWave AI.
That's right.
And the intelligence driving today's deep dive is generated by Stylo News, the AI-powered news application.
And just for your records, the metadata for today's brief frames our discussion. The title is Middle East Crisis Update, 26 June 2026.
Okay.
The region of focus is naturally the Middle East, and the date of this broadcast is the 26th of June 2026.
Now, before we really unpack the developments of the past 14 days, it is necessary to explain the infrastructure of today's report to you.
Yes, context is key here.
Right. So the Stylo News application you'll hear us reference today is the consumer-facing iteration of Stylo Intel Ops software.
Which is pretty incredible access.
Exactly. That is a platform originally engineered for enterprise operations across global government, military, and corporate sectors.
Yeah.
What this means for you, the listener, is that you currently have unique access to the exact methodologies and analytical tools designed to support global decision makers.
You are essentially hearing the same signal they are.
Right. And our mission today is to evaluate this operational theater through 3 strategic lines of analysis.
Let's lay those out.
Sure. First, we have to examine Iran and its proxy networks, specifically Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis.
Okay.
We're asking, can they preserve their military capabilities, maintain regime stability, and, continue to impose costs through missiles and drones?
Right, that force preservation aspect. What's the second line?
Second, we'll look at the United States and its regional partners.
Can this coalition effectively degrade Iran's military capabilities, restore regional deterrence, and force a return to meaningful diplomatic engagement?
Which is a massive challenge.
Huge. And third, we analyze Israel's position. Can Israel continue to protect its civilian population and critical infrastructure while simultaneously shaping the conditions that encourage a sustainable peace arrangement?
And as we will see today, these are not isolated tactical events.
Not at all.
They're deeply interconnected strategic, political, and economic challenges. I mean, they impact everything from regional stability to, well, the price of the energy fueling your morning commute.
Absolutely.
So to understand the broader architecture of this conflict, we have to begin at the epicenter of the current military operations. We turn our attention directly to the tactical reality on the ground in Gaza.
Yeah, because the situation in Gaza dictates the tempo for all international diplomacy right now.
Right. So what are the intelligence estimates showing us over the last 2 weeks?
Well, based on open source reporting, we see a very clear posture from Hamas. They are actively engaging in ceasefire negotiations, and they're utilizing Iranian diplomatic channels to do so.
Yeah.
But analysts report that Hamas representatives are explicitly rejecting any terms that require their disarmament.
See, that feels like a contradiction to me.
How so?
Well, they are asking for a cessation of hostilities, right? But refusing to surrender the very infrastructure that sustains the hostilities.
It is a calculated survival strategy. I mean, their objective is force preservation and political survival above all else.
So giving up the weapons just isn't on the table.
Simply not on the table. Without weapons, their political authority within the Strip evaporates.
Okay, so looking at the other side of this equation, the Israeli operational footprint is just massive right now.
Yes, it is.
The Israeli military currently controls more than 60% of the territory in Gaza.
Right.
And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu remains resolute regarding the continuation of operations. But the economic reality of this posture is absolutely staggering.
It really is.
Since October of 2023, the financial toll on Israel has exceeded $205 billion.
Wow.
Wait, $205 billion. Just to put that in perspective for our listeners, that is roughly the entire annual GDP of a small European nation.
All right.
Burned in less than 3 years just to sustain this operational tempo.
And that economic burn rate is forcing strategic shifts. Concurrently, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz is heavily prioritizing 2 long-term avenues to try and change this equation.
Okay, what are they?
First, he is focused on countering the financial networks that fund Iranian proxy terrorism.
Makes sense. Follow the money.
Exactly. Second, and quite notably, he is significantly investing in offensive space capabilities.
Wait, hold on. I have to pause you there.
Yeah.
I hear offensive space capabilities and my mind goes straight to, like, science fiction.
Right. Lasers and satellites.
Exactly. But we are talking about grueling urban combat in Gaza. How does space fit into a ground war?
Well, it's a critical layer of modern warfare. When we say space capabilities in this context, we aren't talking about armed satellites firing lasers.
Okay, good.
We are talking about dominating low Earth orbit for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance.
Oh, I see.
It's about having the unblinking eye to track underground tunnel construction, monitor illicit funding movement across borders, and, jam the communication signals of proxy networks before a drone is ever launched.
So space is really the high ground of the 21st century.
Precisely.
That makes perfect sense. But down on the ground, that technological high ground doesn't negate the chaos?
No, it doesn't.
Which brings us to a highly complex aspect of the current theater, the shifting territorial boundaries.
Right, the yellow line.
Yes.
Yes.
An independent United Nations report recently documented that Palestinian children are still being targeted by Israeli forces along what is known as the Yellow Line.
And the yellow line is the official demarcation separating Israeli-controlled areas from Hamas-controlled areas in Gaza. And according to the UN report, this boundary is entirely fluid. Israeli control has expanded from 53% to 64% of Gaza.
And it's still growing, right?
Yes, with stated plans from military commanders to expand that control to 70%.
Wow.
Now, maintaining strict neutrality on this data, the United Nations presents these findings as evidence of severe civilian harm, arguing that safe zones are shrinking dangerously.
Right, and we need to present all sides here.
Exactly. Conversely, the Israeli government firmly rejects the UN report.
What's their stance?
They characterize it as propaganda, asserting that their operations and the constantly shifting lines are an absolute military necessity to rout out embedded Hamas fighters.
Think about this from a purely logistical standpoint, though. This shifting yellow line presents a severe humanitarian challenge.
Absolutely.
It's like a moving goalpost in a crowded stadium. But the game is active urban combat.
Yeah, it's incredibly dangerous.
How are civilians, or even international observers, supposed to safely navigate a boundary to find a safe zone when that boundary is constantly expanding under artillery fire?
That is the precise friction point highlighted by international humanitarian organizations.
Right.
When a demarcation line shifts dynamically during combat, the risk of miscalculation and civilian casualties rises exponentially. It is an environment of profound instability.
Which makes a recent, largely under-the-radar diplomatic development all more significant.
Yes, this is huge.
We are tracking a major regional shift regarding Gaza's future security architecture. Morocco has formalized a military cooperation agreement.
A massive shift.
But they are preparing to deploy Moroccan troops to Gaza in 2026 with the explicit mandate of disarming Hamas.
Right.
Wait, we really need to unpack that. Morocco, an Arab nation, is sending its own troops into Gaza to forcefully disarm Palestinian militant group.
That's the plan.
Historically, that is unprecedented. How are they navigating the optics of that within the broader Arab world?
Well, it represents a massive geopolitical maturation of the Abraham Accords.
Okay.
Morocco is stepping into a security vacuum because they realize that Israel cannot occupy Gaza indefinitely without incurring further international isolation and economic ruin.
So Morocco is acting as a buffer.
Essentially, they are framing this not as an occupation, but as an Arab-led stabilization force.
Interesting.
It is a calculated risk to neutralize Iranian influence in the region while establishing themselves as a primary security broker.
If we look at the digital landscape to see how the public is processing all of this, the sentiment on the social media platform X reflects profound polarization.
Very divided.
Analysis of the data shows a deeply divided public discourse. One segment of users vigorously defends the actions of the IDF, framing Hamas as the sole aggressor.
Right.
And a counter segment heavily criticizes Israel, pointing directly to those UN findings, the expanding yellow line, and the severe humanitarian crisis.
And that digital polarization is mirrored in the physical world.
Yes, it is.
Because Hamas refuses to lay down their arms in the south, that pressure cooker is blowing its lid in the north. The conflict has inextricably drawn in Israel's northern neighbors.
So we need to shift our analysis to Lebanon and the northern front.
Yes.
Lebanon has transitioned into a parallel flashpoint, we are seeing both intensive diplomacy and active lethal military conflict happening simultaneously.
It's a very volatile mix.
Currently, United States-mediated talks between Israel and Lebanon are extending into their fourth day in Washington. The primary focus of these negotiations is the establishment of demilitarized pilot zones.
And a pilot zone is essentially a localized sandbox for peace.
What does that mean, practically?
The idea is to pick a small, defined geographic area, clear it of all militants, and hand security over to a recognized state military, in this case, the Lebanese Armed Forces.
Okay.
If it works there, you expand the zone.
But the structural vulnerability here seems to be the Lebanese government itself, doesn't it?
Exactly. The government in Beirut is politically fragile and lacks the coercive capacity to impose its will on Hezbollah.
They just don't have the muscle.
Right. They cannot properly deploy the Lebanese armed forces to the south without Hezbollah's consent.
And Hezbollah is not giving that consent.
No. Hezbollah's deputy leader, named Qassem, has publicly and categorically rejected any normalization. He is demanding an unconditional Israeli withdrawal before any pilot zones are even discussed.
So we have diplomats shaking hands in Washington, but the tactical reality on the ground in southern Lebanon tells a much darker story.
The current ceasefire framework is failing.
Over the last 24 hours alone, Israeli operations involving drone strikes, demolitions, and armored movements have resulted in the deaths of 6 Hezbollah fighters.
Yes.
These engagements occurred in southern Lebanese areas, including Zotar al-Sharqiya and the Ali al-Tar Ridge. And Prime Minister Netanyahu asserts Israel will remain in Lebanon as long as necessary.
And the humanitarian fallout from this northern escalation is severe.
It's devastating.
Over 1 million Lebanese citizens are currently displaced. In response, neighboring Jordan has dispatched a 20-truck humanitarian aid convoy to Lebanon.
Now, what is Jordan's broader security posture right now?
Well, Jordan faces no imminent direct military threats itself at this moment. However, Jordanian security forces remain highly vigilant.
Watching the borders.
Exactly. Closely monitoring their borders for proxy transit and any potential spillover from the instability in southern Syria.
Observing the global public reaction again, social media sentiment on X demonstrates a profound empathy for the displaced Lebanese civilian population. There's real outrage over the destruction of civilian infrastructure.
But the views on Hezbollah are a different story.
Completely. The public view fractures. Some users frame Hezbollah as a legitimate resistance force defending Lebanese sovereignty, while others condemn them as an Iranian proxy actively violating ceasefires.
Which brings us back to the structural absurdity of the Washington negotiations.
Right. I have to raise a critical logistical question regarding these talks.
Go ahead.
How does the United States, or Israel, successfully negotiate a binding demilitarized pilot zone with the official Lebanese government when the actual military power controlling the ground, Hezbollah, refuses to sit at the table?
It's a great question. From a strategic standpoint, they are negotiating a framework of intent rather than an immediate tactical reality.
In a framework of intent.
Right. The U.S. and Israel are attempting to build an international legal structure.
Okay.
The hope is that by securing the Lebanese government's agreement, they can gradually empower the Lebanese armed forces to eventually assume control.
But I mean, a beautifully drafted treaty signed in Washington means absolutely nothing in the hills of southern Lebanon if Hezbollah's leadership rejects it.
Exactly. It is a profound diplomatic hurdle.
And with ground operations grinding into a protracted stalemate in both Gaza and Lebanon, we're observing a dangerous widening of the conflict.
Yes, it is evolving into an asymmetric economic war.
Led largely by Iran and the Houthi movement in Yemen, threatening global maritime shipping as a mechanism of leverage.
Right. And to understand this broader chessboard, we have to look at the Iranian strategy. Tehran is actively avoiding a direct state-on-state conventional war with Israel or the U.S.
Because they know they can't win that fight.
Precisely. Instead, they are escalating through gray zone tactics.
Just to translate that for our listeners, gray zone tactics mean operating just below the threshold of an actual declaration of war.
Right.
It's sabotage, proxy attacks, cyber warfare, plausible deniability. You poke the bear, but not quite hard enough to make it bite your head off.
That is a perfect summary, and a prime example of this duality occurred over the past week.
What happened?
On June 17th, the civilian Iranian government signed a memorandum of understanding with the United States to keep the Strait of Hormuz open for commercial shipping.
A major diplomatic breakthrough, theoretically.
Theoretically. Yet, on June 25th, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, acted completely independently of that agreement.
Right.
They launched a projectile attack against a Singapore-flagged cargo ship in the Strait, severely damaging its bridge.
Hold on, I'm trying to square this timeline. The civilian government signs a peace agreement on the 17th, and the military bombs a ship on the 25th.
Yes.
Why are Western diplomats even sitting at the table if the people signing the papers don't control the weapons? Aren't they just negotiating with a facade?
It is the most persistent dilemma in international relations regarding Iran.
I can imagine.
Western diplomats are fully aware of the dual power structure in Tehran. Negotiating with the civilian government is done to establish a baseline of international norms, not under the illusion of total control.
So it's about providing an off-ramp for the moderates.
Exactly. When the IRGC violates those agreements, it clarifies the threat environment and forces global alignment against the IRGC's actions.
Well, the global repercussions of that single strike by the IRGC were immediate.
Yes, they were.
The UN's International Maritime Organization actually had to pause an evacuation program for 11,000 stranded seafarers in the region.
11,000 people.
And the U.S. responded swiftly. Secretary of State Marco Rubio issued a firm rejection of any attempts by Iran to charge unauthorized tolls or dictate shipping lanes.
And we really have to connect this to you, the listener. When 11,000 seafarers are stranded and cargo ships have to reroute thousands of miles, that is a direct hit to the global supply chain.
Right. That's why energy prices spike and consumers see inflation at the grocery store.
Concurrently, there is an effort to manage this specific escalation. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance announced that a direct military-to-military communication line has now been established between the IRGC and the U.S. military.
To prevent an accidental all-out war.
Exactly, crisis management. We must also look south to Yemen to see how the proxy strategy is expanding.
Right. The recognized Yemeni government is politically present but operationally weak.
The actual power rests with the Houthis.
And the Houthis are currently issuing aggressive threats against Israel regarding a recent Israeli presence in Somaliland.
Well,
For geographic context, Somaliland sits right across the water from Yemen, guarding the Bab al-Mandab Strait. Why are the Houthis so concerned about Israeli activity there?
Because the Bab al-Mandab Strait is the bottom of the funnel for the Red Sea. If you control that strait, you control access to the Suez Canal.
Ah, I see.
The Houthis view any Israeli activity in Somaliland as a direct threat to their maritime leverage.
And in response to these escalating threats, intelligence indicates Israel is preparing renewed, heavy military strikes targeting Houthi leadership in the Yemeni cities of Sana'a and Hudaydah.
When we evaluate public sentiment regarding these maritime disruptions, the data from X shows highly critical and alarmed reactions toward the IRGC.
Right, the public sees their actions as rogue behavior, cementing Iran's framing as a regional destabilizer.
Exactly. So let's synthesize these developments. Having examined the local, national, and international data, we return to our core mission questions to forecast the near-term outlook.
Based on the intelligence, how does this play out for the key actors? What's the course of action?
Well, for Iran and its proxy network, the primary course of action is preserving their capabilities.
Avoiding direct war.
Right. They will use deniable maritime coercion and proxy survival tactics to maintain leverage.
And for the United States and its regional partners.
Their strategy relies on diplomatic containment, like that new IRGC-US comm line, paired with regional military alliances.
Like Morocco's upcoming troop deployment to Gaza.
Exactly. The goal is to restore deterrence without igniting a third world war.
And finally, Israel. Their course of action is defined by an open-ended, high-cost military posture.
Absorbing that $205 billion burden to sustain multi-front operations.
Right, to fundamentally degrade proxy networks, despite severe international and humanitarian pushback.
So for those of you monitoring the situation, there are 3 specific indicators to watch for in the coming weeks.
What are they?
First, watch for the logistical preparations and the actual deployment of Moroccan forces into Gaza. That will be a watershed moment. Second, look out for any upcoming rulings from the United Nations or the International Court of Justice regarding the legality of Israel's expanding yellow line in Gaza.
Okay. And the third?
Keep your eyes on the Strait of Hormuz for any further rogue harassment by the IRGC, which remains the most volatile trigger for global economic disruption.
Well, that concludes the strategic analysis for today's brief.
Yes, it does.
Thank you. To our listeners, this deep dive was generated using the Stylo News platform. As we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, Stylo News is a mobile and computer application that empowers you to build personal intelligence-style briefs just like this one.
It's an incredible tool.
It really is. It utilizes an open-source intelligence engine that actively tracks over 250 global sources across more than 20 languages.
And it features a unique location AI bot that allows users to run pattern-of-life analysis on emerging global events.
We highly encourage you to subscribe to Stylo News to receive AI-powered news on demand. You can find them at www.stylonews.com. Well, that's it for the Heavy News Anchor delivery today. I'm dropping the 1960s persona now because I really just want to take a second to talk to you directly.
Yeah, it's nice to step out of the serious anchor mode for a second.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Navigating this much heavy global information isn't easy, and we really appreciate you trusting us to help unpack it all and find the signal in the noise.
Absolutely.
We'd love to hear from you. Please send us your requests for topics you'd like us to tackle in future deep dives. And don't forget to follow Stylo News on your favorite social media platforms to stay updated.
It is always a pleasure to unpack these complexities with you. And, I want to leave you listening with a final thought to consider today.
Go ahead.
Throughout this broadcast, we've discussed how military commanders, intelligence analysts, and diplomats use sophisticated software to navigate global crises. But with platforms like Stylo News now giving everyday civilians access to the exact same real-time, AI-driven intelligence, how long will it be before public access to strategic data completely strips governments of their historical monopoly on foreign policy? Something to think about.